I should have known something was off the second my brother Dylan smirked over Mom's famous pot roast. That grin of his always meant trouble. But this time, he took things too far. I'm Emily, 28 years old, and growing up as Dylan's little sister meant being his personal target for pranks. Most of the time, I could roll with it. Not tonight. Tonight changed everything. Dylan clinked his wine glass with his fork, drawing everyone's attention. The whole table turned toward him. Mom, Aunt Linda, our family friend Nora, and my best friend Matt, who I'd invited for moral support. "I've got a confession to make," Dylan announced, that stupid grin stretching wider. Mom beamed at him, like he was about to tell her she won the lottery. "What is it, sweetie?" she asked. Dylan leaned back, pausing for dramatic effect. My stomach twisted. "Remember last month when Emily was complaining about her medication not working?" he said, letting the question hang in the air. I froze. Every nerve in my body went on high alert. Mom nodded, completely unbothered. "Well," Dylan continued, practically bouncing in his seat, "I might have switched her pills with sugar tablets. You know, just to see what would happen." Silence. 3 seconds. That's all it took before Mom burst out laughing. "Oh, Dylan, you didn't," she giggled. "I did," he said proudly, grinning ear to ear. And it was hilarious watching her freak out over nothing. My hands trembled under the table. Those weren't just random vitamins. They were my prescribed medication for chronic migraines. The kind of migraines that left me curled up in a dark room for days. The ones that made me miss work. Almost cost me my job. "That's not funny," Aunt Linda said slowly, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "Those are prescription medications, Dylan." "Oh, please." Mom waved her hand dismissively. Emily's always been dramatic about her headaches. A little placebo effect probably did her some good. Matt's hand found mine under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. When I met his gaze, his face was tight with barely restrained anger. "So that's why I was in excruciating pain for weeks?" My voice came out surprisingly steady. "That's why I almost lost my job?" Dylan rolled his eyes. "Come on, Em, it was just a joke." A joke. I clenched my fists. My chair scraped against the hardwood as I stood. "I ended up in the ER, Dylan," I said, my voice shaking. "Remember that? Or were you too busy laughing at your own brilliance?" Mom's face twisted in annoyance. "Emily, sit down. You're making a scene." I scanned the table. Aunt Linda shook her head in disgust. Nora stared at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. Only Matt met my gaze, giving me a slight nod of support. "Making a scene?" I whispered, gripping my water glass. "You want to see a scene?" Don't," Matt warned softly. I slammed the glass down. Water splashed onto the pristine white tablecloth. Mom gasped, clutching her pearls like I'd just flipped the whole damn table. "You know what?" I said, voice rising. "I'm done. I'm done with your pranks, Dylan. I'm done with you laughing them off, Mom. And I am especially done being the family joke." "Oh, don't be so sensitive," Dylan called after me as I stormed toward the door. "It's not like you died or anything." I stopped. My gaze landed on Mom's prized collection of glass elephant figurines. They sat on a shelf in the corner. 32 delicate crystal elephants, each one polished to perfection. They had been passed down from Grandma, who cherished them more than anything, maybe even more than her own children. "No, Dylan," I thought. "I didn't die, but something will." Mom's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I forced a smile. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Enjoy your dinner." As I walked out, Aunt Linda's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "You should be ashamed of yourselves." Matt caught up with me in the driveway. "Emily, wait." I was pacing, my hands clenched into fists. "Did you see them? Did you see how they laughed?" Matt grabbed my shoulders, gently forcing me to stop. "I saw," he said. "And it was messed up. But what are you going to do?" I glanced back at the house. Through the window, the elephants caught the last rays of evening light, their crystal bodies glowing. 32 perfect pieces, each one worth a small fortune. I exhaled slowly, a plan already forming in my mind. "Those elephants have been watching this family's drama for 3 generations, I murmured. "Maybe it's time they did more than just watch." Matt's eyes widened slightly. "Emily," he said cautiously, Don't worry, I said, already feeling calmer as the idea solidified. I'm not going to do anything crazy. I glanced at the elephants one more time, catching the way the light refracted through them. I'm just going to make sure karma does its job. 3 days after the dinner disaster, I was back at Mom's house, pretending everything was fine. The elephants glinted in the afternoon sun as I helped her with the dishes, their crystal bodies casting rainbow patterns on the walls. I just don't understand why you're still upset, Mom said, handing me a plate to dry. Dylan apologized. I placed the plate down harder than I meant to. No, he didn't, I said flatly. He texted me, sorry or mad LOL with a crying laughing emoji. That's not an apology. Mom scrubbed at a pot that was already clean. Oh, you know how he is. He means well. From the living room, Dylan's voice carried through the house. Hey, Mom, where's that old photo album from Emily's awkward phase? The one with the braces? My grip on the dish towel tightened. Of course. Let me guess, he's going to scan those pictures and post them online. Mom flicked water at me like I was overreacting. He's just being a big brother. A big brother who tampered with my medication, I shot back. Do you even realize how serious that was? I could have pressed charges. Mom's face darkened. Don't you dare threaten your brother. I laughed bitterly. Of course. Protect precious Dylan. Who cares if your daughter ended up in the hospital? Found it! Dylan's triumphant voice rang out, followed by laughter. Oh man, these are gold. I stormed into the living room, where Dylan was sprawled on the couch, flipping through my middle school pictures. His stupid grin hadn't changed a bit. Remember when you had that massive zit at graduation? He said, holding up a picture. I think it's in here somewhere. I snatched the album out of his hands. You know what I remember? I hissed. Lying in a dark room for 3 days straight last month because my meds mysteriously stopped working. Oh my God, are you still on about that? Dylan rolled his eyes. It was just a joke. Still on about it? I clenched the album so hard my knuckles went white. Yeah, Dylan, I said, voice shaking. I'm still on about it, because while you were laughing your ass off, I was missing work, throwing up from pain and wondering why my medication wasn't helping. Mom rushed in, her apron still on. Emily, give your brother back the album. Why? I snapped. So he can humiliate me more? It's just pictures, Dylan said, standing up and reaching for the album. Don't be such a drama queen. A drama queen. My head throbbed. The pain wasn't from a migraine this time. It was from the rage building inside me. Behind Dylan, the elephant collection sat quietly on the shelf. Their crystal faces reflected the afternoon light, as calm and unbothered as always. One piece in particular caught my eye, a baby elephant with its trunk raised. Mom always said it was her favorite. Supposedly, it brought good luck. I stared at that elephant, and suddenly I knew exactly what I needed to do. You want to know what your joke cost me? I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Here's the ER bill, $2,800. Dylan barely glanced at the screen. Not my problem, he muttered. Exactly. I shoved my phone back in my pocket. Nothing is ever your problem. Mom stepped between us, her tone sharp. Enough, both of you. Emily, you're being ridiculous. Dylan didn't mean any harm. He never does. I turned to leave, but Dylan's voice followed me. Where are you going? To cry to Matt about how mean we are. I paused, looking back at the elephants, especially that baby one. An idea solidified in my mind. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. No, Dylan, I said quietly. I'm going to do what you taught me. His smirk faltered. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged, mimicking his carefree tone. Nothing. Mom's eyes narrowed. Emily. I smiled. I'm fine. I walked out the door, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I heard Mom comforting Dylan, telling him I'd get over it eventually. She had no idea, because getting over it wasn't the plan anymore. Mom was hosting her bridge club tonight, which meant the house would be empty for at least 3 hours. I checked my watch as Matt pulled his car into the shadows 2 houses down. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. You're sure about the alarm code? Matt asked. Yeah, 4782, I said, rolling my eyes. Dylan's birth year. Of course it's him. Matt nodded, squeezing my shoulder. Ready? I took a deep breath. Ready. We waited, watching Mom's car disappear around the corner. Her bridge club friends chattered as they drove away. The house sat dark and quiet, except for the porch light she always left on. We moved quickly across the lawn. My spare key slid easily into the lock. I punched in the alarm code, my fingers trembling. The little green light blinked. We were in. The house felt different at night, darker, emptier. The silence pressed down on us as we headed toward the dining room. And there they were, Mom's beloved elephant collection, gleaming on the shelves in the moonlight. "Start with the small ones," I whispered, even though no one was home. "They're in the front." Matt nodded, pulling out the padded boxes we'd brought. He worked methodically, wrapping each piece in bubble wrap while I took pictures of every elephant for documentation. Each figurine had its own story. The baby elephant from my 5th birthday, the mother and calf pair from Mom's wedding, the majestic bull elephant that had been Grandma's favorite, the last piece she added before she passed. I picked it up carefully, holding it in my hands longer than I meant to. Matt's voice was soft. "You okay?" I realized I was staring at the bull elephant, lost in thought. "She left these to Mom because she thought they'd be safe," I murmured. "She never knew what this family would become." Matt studied me. "We can still stop." "No," I shook my head, carefully wrapping the bull elephant. "We're doing this." My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Linda. "Bridge club spotted at Carol's house. All clear." I felt a surge of relief. "We're good," I whispered. "Let's move faster." We worked in silence, packing the elephants with care. It took just under 20 minutes to box them all up. 32 figurines in total. When we were done, the display cabinet stood empty, its glass shelves bare. Matt glanced at the cabinet. "Looks like a mouth with all the teeth pulled out." I let out a short laugh. "Yeah, kind of poetic, right?" He gave me a serious look. Last chance to back out. I stared at the empty cabinet, remembering all the times Mom let me help clean those elephants, how proud she was of them, how she'd tell their stories over and over. Then I remembered her laughing at dinner, dismissing my pain, protecting Dylan. I turned to Matt, my voice steady. "Let's go." The drive to the storage unit was tense. Every car behind us looked like Mom's. Every red light stretched into eternity. But finally we pulled up to find Aunt Linda and Nora waiting. "Everything okay?" Linda asked, helping us unload. "Perfect," I said, handing Nora the first box. "They're all here." Nora opened the box and lifted out the baby elephant. "Oh my God," she whispered. "These are even more beautiful than I remember. The auction house is going to love them." "When are they picking them up?" I asked. "Tomorrow," Nora said. "The auction's in 3 weeks, and these will be the centerpiece." 3 weeks? My stomach lurched. Mom will notice they're gone way before then. "That's the point, isn't it?" Linda said, stacking the boxes inside the storage unit. "Let her feel what it's like to lose something precious." My phone buzzed again. "Mom. The elephants are gone. Someone broke in. Call me, now." Then another. "Mom, please tell me you didn't take them." And another. "Mom, your brother is furious. What have you done?" I turned off my phone and leaned back in the seat. Matt exhaled beside me. "You know there's no going back now." Good. I watched the storage unit disappear in the side mirror. I'm done going backward. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Mom, Dylan, even family friends I hadn't spoken to in months. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I made coffee, sat by my window, and waited. It didn't take long. A black SUV screeched into my driveway. Mom's. I sipped my coffee as she stormed out of the car, furious, her phone still clutched in her manicured hand. A second later, bam, 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 she pounded on my door. I took my time unlocking it. Mom shoved past me, her perfume clouding the air, her heels clicking angrily against the hardwood. "The elephants!" she snapped. "Where are they?" I took another slow sip. "What elephants?" Her face twisted. "Don't play games with me, Emily. I know you took them." I leaned against the doorframe, pretending to think. "Interesting accusation," I mused. "Do you have proof?" She threw up her hands. "Who else would want them? Who else would do this?" I tilted my head. You mean like how Dylan tampered with my prescription medication for a joke, and no one seemed to care? That was different, she snapped. I laughed. Oh, was it? Mom folded her arms, her breathing uneven. You don't understand what you've done. Those elephants are worth a fortune. Oh, I understand, I said. I understand that you cherished those figurines more than you ever cherished me. She flinched like I'd hit her. Emily, she said, her voice suddenly shaky. Those were your grandmother's. She wanted them in our family. I shrugged. Maybe, but you know what else Grandma believed? Mom didn't answer. She believed that beautiful things should have a purpose. Her face paled. I smiled. She knew. I leaned in, my voice a whisper. That's why I donated them. Mom staggered back like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes glassy with disbelief. No, she whispered. No, no, no. You wouldn't. Oh, but I did. She shook her head violently. This is a joke. This is some sick, twisted joke. Why? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Because only Dylan is allowed to play games? Her nostrils flared. I'll take you to court. I laughed outright. Go ahead. I have a paper trail of everything. The will, the valuation, the donation agreement. Want me to send you a copy? She trembled, rage and desperation battling in her expression. Then she pulled her last card. You've embarrassed the family, she hissed. Your brother is… I cut her off. Dylan can go to hell. Mom's lips parted, stunned. I'm done, I said. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done being your afterthought. And I'm done letting Dylan get away with everything. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Nothing but relief. She took a shaky step back, staring at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Good, because I wasn't her doormat Emily anymore. I was free. She turned sharply on her heel, marching toward the door. This isn't over, she muttered. I watched her leave, a small smile playing on my lips. Oh, Mom, I whispered as I closed the door. It already is. I didn't hear from Dylan for 3 days. 3 blissful, peaceful days. Mom? She was still fuming. I ignored her calls, deleted her texts without reading them, and let her voicemail fill up. But Dylan? Silence. That was new. And then, on the 4th day, he finally called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. I let it ring until the last second before picking up. Yeah? For a moment there was nothing but static. Then Dylan's voice came through. Not cocky, not smug, not laughing, shaken. What the hell did you do? I smirked. Oh, come on, Dylan, be specific. He let out a sharp breath like he was physically holding himself back. Mom is losing her goddamn mind, he hissed. She's been crying for days. Sounds like a personal problem. You donated the elephants? He snapped. Are you insane? No, I'm just really good at following through, I said. You should try it sometime. A long, furious silence. Then, his voice dropped lower. You don't understand what you've done. That made me laugh. Oh, I do? No, he snapped. You really don't. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. For the first time, I hesitated. Dylan, what the hell are you talking about? He exhaled, sharp and unsteady. Mom was leveraging those elephants, Em. I blinked. Leveraging? They weren't just sitting on a damn shelf, he muttered. She was using them as collateral. She took out a loan. A cold feeling crept up my spine. What kind of loan? The kind she can't pay back. My grip on the phone tightened. I had never heard Dylan sound this serious. How much? I asked. Silence. Dylan, I said sharply. How much? 300 grand. The words hit like a sledgehammer. I almost dropped my phone. What? I whispered. She put up the collection as collateral, he said. She borrowed the money, planning to sell the elephants later. But now? Now they're gone, Em. And the bank is coming for the house. I felt my breath catch. Mom was losing the house? You've got to fix this, Dylan said, his voice frantic now. You need to… I cut him off. No. He froze. What? I said no, I repeated, my voice stronger this time. I'm not fixing a damn thing. Emily, I let out a breath, shaking my head. For years, Dylan. For years I put up with your crap, your pranks, your gaslighting, Mom's excuses. I let everything slide. But now, I gripped the phone tighter. You want to talk about consequences? Here they are. He sucked in a sharp breath. You're seriously just going to let Mom lose everything? He asked, incredulous. She already lost the only thing she cared about, I said coldly. And it wasn't me. For once, Dylan had no comeback. I let the silence drag out. Then finally, soft, strained, hesitant, he asked, what do we do? We. Not me. We. I swallowed, my heart pounding. It was the first time in his life Dylan had ever admitted he needed help. I let the moment stretch. Then, slowly, I smiled. Well, I said, that depends. Are you finally ready to grow up? Dylan didn't answer right away. I could hear the struggle in his silence. He wasn't used to this, to being powerless, and for the first time in his miserable life, he needed something from me. I let the tension sit, let him squirm. Then, finally, his voice came through. What do you want? I smirked. There it was. I'm glad you asked. I grabbed my coffee, settled into my chair, and let the game begin. Dylan showed up at my apartment later that night. He looked like shit. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders tense, jaw clenched so hard it might crack. He was rattled. Good. He walked in without being invited, pacing immediately. Mom's a wreck, he muttered. She hasn't slept. She's on the phone with the bank all day. I crossed my arms. Sounds exhausting. His eyes snapped to me. This isn't funny, Emily. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, so now that the tables have turned, suddenly we don't like jokes? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Okay, I get it. You're pissed. You want revenge. You got it. Congrats. But we're in deep shit here. You need to... I held up a hand. Stop saying I. He frowned. What? This isn't my mess, I said coolly. This is yours. Mom's. I didn't take out a $300,000 loan against a bunch of damn figurines. His mouth snapped shut. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. So let's get one thing straight, I said. I don't need to do a damn thing. You do. His face twisted, a million retorts battling behind his eyes. But he didn't argue. For once in his spoiled, entitled life, he listened. I let that victory sink in before I continued. I have a plan, I said, tapping my fingers against the table. Dylan's eyes narrowed. What kind of plan? The kind that doesn't get Mom evicted, I said. But it comes with conditions. He scoffed. Of course it does. I tilted my head. You don't have to agree. Dylan stiffened. We both knew he had no choice. I leaned back, savoring this moment. Here's how this is going to go. The auction house had already started selling some of the elephants. The money was locked in. But I had leverage. I made a call to Nora, the auction contact, and told her I was considering pulling back some of the pieces, ones that hadn't sold yet. Collectors had already lined up, but if I made a compelling enough argument, we could work out a deal. Dylan's job paid well. Not well enough to cover all of Mom's debts, but enough to chip away at it. You're going to start funneling your paycheck into this, I told him. He started to protest. I raised a hand. Shut up! He actually did. A real one. No half-assed text. No sarcasm. A real, genuine apology. He looked physically ill when I said it. Apologize to who? To me, I said, and to Mom. Dylan rolled his eyes. Why the hell would I apologize to you? I smiled sweetly. Because if you don't, you can kiss my cooperation goodbye. His nostrils flared. He wanted to argue. But I had all the power now. Finally, he exhaled sharply. Fine. I waited. He blinked. What? I'm waiting. His face twitched. Oh, you mean now? Yes, I said. Now. He inhaled, like it was physically painful to do this. Emily, he muttered. I tapped my foot. I'm sorry. I gave him a look. Try again. He clenched his jaw. I'm sorry. For the prank. For the meds. For everything. I let him sit in that discomfort for a long, long moment. Then, finally, I nodded. Accepted. He looked relieved. But he wasn't off the hook yet. Now do it with Mom. Dylan groaned. Oh my God, I smiled. Do you want my help or not? He shut up. This was the big one. You need a plan, I told him. A real job path, a real financial strategy. You're pushing 30, Dylan. It's time. He stared at me like I had suggested he climb Mount Everest. I have a job. You have a job you treat like a joke, I said. You blow money on dumb crap. You coast through life. That stops now. His hands balled into fists. You can't just— I can, I said, cutting him off. And I am. Dylan's leg bounced rapidly under the table. I could tell he wanted to fight, to argue, to deflect, but he couldn't, because for the first time, he wasn't the one calling the shots. I leaned forward, my voice quiet but sharp. You want to fix this? I asked. You want me to help? His jaw locked. Then it's time to start acting like a man. A long, tense silence. Then, finally, he nodded. All fine. And just like that, I had won. Dylan was one thing. Mom, that was a whole different battle. I knew I couldn't force her to change, but I could do something better. I could make her see. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my emails until I found what I needed. The latest update from the clinic, the newest patients who had been helped by Grandma's elephants. I turned the screen to Dylan. Read it. He frowned. What is this? Read it. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Then, as his eyes moved over the words, his face changed. The sarcasm faded. The frustration melted away. Because for the first time, he saw the impact. The woman who got life-saving medication. The single mom who could finally afford treatment. The kid who no longer had to skip doctor's visits. Dylan swallowed hard. I didn't say anything. I just let him feel it. Then, finally, I stood up. We're going to Mom's, I said, and you're going to show her that. Dylan looked up at me, something unreadable in his eyes. Why? I sighed. Because she still thinks this was about spite. I grabbed my keys. It's time she learned the truth. Dylan was quiet on the drive to Mom's, not fidgeting, not cracking jokes, just staring out the window, lost in thought. I didn't say anything. I wanted him to sit in it, to process, to understand. For the first time in his entire life, Dylan wasn't the one laughing. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked different. Not physically, but the energy, the weight of it. The porch light glowed weakly, like it had given up. The windows were dark, and for the first time in years, I wasn't the one dreading going inside. Ready? I asked, shifting into park. Dylan sighed, rubbing his hands over his face. No, he muttered, but let's do it anyway. Mom was in the kitchen, staring at a cup of tea like it might give her the answers to her problems. She looked older, not just tired, worn down. The moment she saw us, her eyes flashed. Oh, look, she snapped. The prodigal daughter and her sidekick. Dylan stiffened. I didn't react. Mom, sit down, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I pulled out a chair. Sit. She stared at me, defiant, but she sat. Dylan hesitated before sitting across from her. Mom crossed her arms. I assume you're here to gloat. No, I said calmly. I'm here to tell you the truth. She let out a sharp laugh. The truth? Oh, this should be rich. I turned to Dylan. Show her. He hesitated. Then slowly he pulled out his phone, opened the email, and slid it across the table. Mom glanced down. At first, she didn't react, just scanned the words, her expression blank. Then, her hands shook. She blinked, eyes darting over the screen again, as if she had misread it. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She reached for the phone like she needed to hold it to believe it was real. The clinic report. The real reason the elephants were gone. The woman who could afford her medication again. The kid who didn't have to skip doctor's visits anymore. The people who mattered more than figurines on a shelf. Mom's fingers curled around the phone. She read the email twice. Then, softly, weakly. Why didn't you tell me? I exhaled, leaning forward. I tried, I said, but you weren't ready to listen. Her eyes shone with something I hadn't seen before. Regret. Real, actual regret. She looked at Dylan. You knew. Dylan swallowed. I didn't, he admitted. Not at first. Something cracked in her expression, like she was realizing, maybe for the first time, that she had failed both of us. I pushed the phone closer to her. These elephants, I said quietly, are doing what Grandma would have wanted. Mom's breath hitched, and for the first time since this whole mess started, she didn't argue. The next day I was getting coffee when my phone buzzed. Mom, can I come to the clinic event? I stared at the screen for a long time, not knowing how to feel. Then, finally, I typed back, me. Yeah, you should. I wasn't sure if Mom would actually show up. I mean, she'd asked, but that didn't mean she'd follow through. And honestly, a part of me was prepared for her to chicken out. But when I arrived at the clinic, she was already there, standing by the entrance, holding a bouquet of white lilies. She looked nervous, uncertain, like she didn't belong, and for the first time, I saw her. Not the controlling, dismissive woman who worshipped her elephants more than her kids. Not the mother who made excuses for Dylan while calling me dramatic. Just a woman who had lost everything and was only now realizing why. I stopped a few feet away. She turned when she heard me. Emily, she said softly. I studied her. You came. She nodded, looking down at the bouquet. I didn't know if this was appropriate, she admitted. I just thought, she sighed. I don't know. She was uncomfortable, out of her depth. But for once, she wasn't dismissing me. I reached out, taking the bouquet. They're perfect. She blinked, like she hadn't expected me to say that. I gestured toward the doors. Come on, I said. Let's go see what Grandma's elephants have done. The event was packed. Patients, doctors, donors, and right at the front, a glass display case. Inside, the remaining elephants sat proudly, not as some private collection, but as a symbol of something greater. Mom stood frozen in the middle of the room, staring at them. Then softly, they look beautiful. I smiled. They look right. Before she could respond, a woman approached us. Dark circles under her eyes, a tired but grateful smile on her lips. Are you Emily? She asked. I nodded. She exhaled, visibly relieved. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. My daughter has a chronic illness, and your donation made it possible for us to afford her medication. She gestured toward a little girl standing nearby, clutching an inhaler. Mom's breath hitched. The woman hesitated, then turned to her. You must be Emily's mother, she said. Mom opened her mouth, closed it. Then, finally, quietly, yes. The woman smiled. You raised a good one. Mom flinched, not because she disagreed, but because for the first time she was realizing she hadn't always been good to me. She turned back to the elephants. She stared at the baby one, the one she used to claim brought good luck, and she exhaled. Emily, she said. Yeah? She turned to me, something raw and unspoken in her expression. I'm sorry. I froze. I hadn't expected that. Not really, not like this. For a second, I wasn't sure if I was going to cry or laugh or just walk away. Instead, I took a deep breath. Then I nodded. I know, I said, and for the first time in years, I believed her. 2 weeks later, I was back at Mom's house for dinner, not because I owed her anything, not because she had earned my forgiveness yet, but because she was trying. And that was enough. Dylan was there too. Still an asshole, but a slightly more responsible one. And when Mom put dinner on the table, something was different. No elephants, no tension, just a family trying to figure out how to be one again. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.